Good morning, everyone. Today I'm going to be talking to you about essentials of biomedical and clinical research. So starting off with the first topic, that is types of research. How many types of research we know? So first I'll be mentioning all the types and then I will be talking about each of them. Basic science research. Now, what does basic science research do? Basic science research explores fundamental biological or physiological processes, not program implementation. It only explores biological or physiological processes. That is known as basic science research. Biological rather, or physiological process. This can be bench-based research. This is also important. You need to remember it can be a bench-based research. Basic science research can also be a bench-based research. Fine, clear to everyone? Okay. Bench-based research refers to experimental studies conducted in a laboratory setting, lab setting, often involving cell cultures, molecular studies, or animal models. It is part of basic science research and is commonly referred to as bench science. This is also known as bench science. I hope I am clear to everyone. Fine. Now moving on. Number 2. Translational research. Translational research. This is the bench to bedside. That is, it bridges the gap between basic science, which I told you it bridges a gap between basic science and clinical application. This gap between basic science and clinical application is bridged by the help of, yes, very good, translational research. It is broader and includes moving discoveries into practice, but does not focus on specifically on program acceptability or functionality. Connects findings from bench research to clinical application, but it is broader than lab-based animal studies. Number 3, we'll be talking about implementation research. Now, implementation research is nothing but scientific inquiry. Implementation, whenever in the exam you get a question, scientific inquiry that seeks to understand the acceptability and functionality of a health program, focuses on understanding how to adopt, implement, and sustain health interventions and programs effectively in real world settings. It examines acceptability, feasibility, fidelity, sustainability, which are the key functionality, which are key to the functionality and uptake of a health program. Number 4, and extremely important, that's why I'm writing it in red color. Red is very to the power of infinity important. Clinical research. So clinical research involves testing treatments or interventions like medicines or anything you can test in controlled settings, mainly focused on efficacy and safety, not real world implementation. This is mainly focused on finding the efficacy and safety. Efficacy is a maximal response that can be elicited by a drug. Then after that we move on to number 5. Number 5 refers to theoretical research. Theoretical research involves abstract conceptual work, models, simulations, not lab experiment. You should remember this. Then finally, last but not the least, we come on to an extremely important part, that is the last, that is preventive research. This is the last part of research, preventive research, which basically focuses on preventing diseases in populations, typically through public health or clinical studies, not lab work. So lab work with animals is not included in this. Public health or clinical studies. Then moving on to framing a research question. Always remember the finer criteria to frame a research question. Always never forget this finer criteria. Yeah, F stands for, and this is often asked in your exams, feasible. F is feasible, I is interesting, N is novel, E is ethical, and R is relevant. So this stands for always ask these questions, extremely important. There is another criteria which is PICO. I am not answering it because I am wanting a response in the comment section of this. You know it. Then moving on to descriptive and analytical questions. Extremely important. Descriptive, whenever you say descriptive, it is used to measure quantity. Descriptive is generally used to measure a quantity. Fine. And it can also be used to generate a hypothesis. Generate hypothesis. Descriptive studies basically act by generating hypothesis. Coming on to extremely important analytical questions, which is used for testing hypothesis. This is extremely important. You know, these studies, descriptive studies are observational studies, case control studies, cohort study. I've told you about all of it. Analytical is randomized control trial. Fine. Cool. Then hypothesis formulation. What are the characteristics of a good hypothesis? Descriptive and analytical objectives and a priori hypothesis. I've told you a priori hypothesis is one which is made when you know it. Please come on. Now enough of me explaining it to you. I want an answer from you on this. Okay, bye.